Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. And today, we actually have our first Norwegian guest in the history of the show. So welcome, Egil Østhus.
Thank you. And I'm so impressed by how close to Norwegian you pronounce my name.
You see, that is because for people that are maybe watching this on YouTube or listening to it on Apple Podcast or Spotify, is that I actually am half Viking. So,
Exactly.
who could miss an opportunity to pronounce my native tongue? Yeah, it's either Irish, potato, or it's like Norwegian or Danish. Or I know you different little factions up there.
Let's not go into that kind of a debate. We will spend the rest of the show talking about the Norwegian versus Danes, and I'm not sure if that's interesting for anybody else than myself.
Well, it is that because there's another show you might not watch because I don't know if you've ever heard of it. There's a show which I highly recommend to anybody. Obviously, apart from the G&T sessions, it's called Trigonometry. Yeah, and it's hosted by two hosts. Yeah. And last week they published the thing called the History of England. Yeah, the kind of the whole from like the first big, and all the kings and all the queens and all the and the Vikings and all the people that invaded, the French and everything like that. It's fascinating. It's 2 hours long.
Yeah.
But I highly recommend anybody to listen to it because it's very, very informative. It's very interesting about like they have a good king, then they have a not a good king. Then they have a good king. It's like
That's interesting.
A bit like other times that we're watching these days. Have a good politician. Have a not. Oh, no, sorry, stop that.
Yeah.
Great to have you on the show. And so Egil's kind of we had a chat about coming on the show, and the interesting thing was that we just looked at this 5 years ago because I'm part of co-organise a couple of meetup groups in London around technology. One called London. Actually, we've rebranded it recently. It's called AI Native. Test automation.
Sounds very, very kind of on the top of hype now. The AI native stuff.
It's very kind of like catchy, isn't it? It's like you've got to have a very long banner, It's like how many buzzwords can you get into that? And 5 years ago, we actually ran a live session with a couple of tech companies from the Silicon Valley around the very topic that you work on at Unleash. So it's fantastic to reconnect in this topic because it's a very hot topic. As we all know, every company is now a software company, or is every company is an AI company? So,
every company is an AI company delivering software, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's like what is software's eating the world, and then AI's eating software. I think that's So welcome to the show. We're now in the kind of we're not quite 150 episodes, but we're going well over 100. So it's great to have you on the show, and thank you for coming on the show. And maybe there's a bit of an intro for people that don't know yourself. Maybe you could just give us a bit of a little pen portrait of yourself, and then we can get into the kind of some of your experiences from your journey. Because I know it's been quite an interesting journey. Not only being technical by your background, but also now being the guy, being the CEO of a software company, a global software company, which is a very interesting transition. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So as you say, that is spot on. I'm the typical engineer growing up in the basement, hacking my computers, hacking my father's computers, hacking my parents' computers, hacking anything that I can actually get my hands onto. And I turned corporate software developer, turned into more business leadership, and eventually turned into startup world. So I think I've been through it, all of them through my career. I'm also a father of two boys, so I also have a family life. So that's great to add to that picture, of course. But it's it's been a fun journey to go through all that kind of corporate, moving into a very small company, myself and my co-founder in the basement, building this to. We are still growing, but a sizable business where we are today.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, people don't normally associate with, you could say, innovation coming out of a fjord in Norway. Although I did explain to Egil before that I have worked with some very innovative companies up in the Nordic region. So is that kind of developing as a region? Would you say? Is it kind of Because you know,
Yeah, I think
like
I think you're spot on there. So I think I can't remember exactly which company we're working with, but it's we are Norway is a major oil company. So we have been in the oil business since the 70s. It's a very interesting story actually, where if you go back to the details, what happened was oil was discovered in 1969, 1970, about that time.
mm,
And the politician was really kind of forward looking. They were saying, well, this is going to be a big thing. Let's make sure that we build a business around this. Let's make sure that we train our Norwegians into understanding this whole field. So the first couple of years, all of the American oil companies coming over, they were required to have Norwegian local employees. And they were required to kind of start using Norwegian companies that was built around this kind of oil service type of field. So over time,
mm,
I would say there is a lot of expertise in engineering in the oil sector in Norway. Deep sea type of oil. I'm not into the details there, so I'm way outside of my comfort zone explaining this. But basically, what happened is that because of a lot of those legislations and how that politicians were defining how to operate this business, we developed a pretty significant engineering practice in Norway and around the oil business. So that is good. What is happening now at these days, though, which is sort of where you are kind of pointing towards, is we are getting to the end of this fantastic time for Norway, right? It's sort of, we all know that we need to transition out of oil. We all know of the environmental issues that is brought with that. So this is the catch-22 for us in Norway. We are earning a embarrassing high number of money on this business. At the same time, we know that there's going to be an end to this. And there's a lot of talent built into this industry. At the same time, we know we need to start shifting into other industries to kind of develop for the future. So
mm.
I would say that's a big conversation happening now locally. How do we sort of balance getting out of this? How would you put that in English? Kind of this dependency towards the oil business, at the same time incentivizing and building up the alternative industries that is going to be the future of our country. So it's a pretty strong conversation. Very, I would say, sometimes also heated conversation. Honestly, we can
Yeah,
also double click on that.
but I think there's some parallels because I suppose I'm not saying at the same scale, but maybe there's an opportunity with Norway because you know when I was in the UAE a few years ago with the Department of Business Trade from the UK government, we went to the Emirati and they were very. This is like 2019, right? 6 years
Yeah,
ago, they were very articulate about their desire to get
yeah,
into software and to get into technology. And then you look at now what's happened with Dubai and Abu Dhabi. I mean, maybe more so Dubai than Abu Dhabi, but Sharjah, obviously around that whole area. You know, it's becoming like a fulcrum, yeah,
yeah,
for technology investment. Obviously, with the big funds out there.
yeah,
So maybe something that Norway can learn from that. But I suppose I was just going to say on when you said about engineering, you know, the
yeah.
engineering heritage in Norway, is that more physical engineering heritage or is that
Yeah, I
software,
mean,
or is it kind of
original.
traverse to what software and hardware? Is that what you're thinking?
Every company turns into a software and AI. We were sort of joking at that, but it's also part of the old business. Is that of course the software is taking over more and more. So yes, it's
Mm,
traditionally
right.
more kind of physical engineering, and these days we are seeing more and more sort of software AI big data type of coming out of this industry because in the physical hardware you have a lot of sensors in place, you have a
Oh,
lot
the
of kind of
IT. Yeah,
details in
yeah.
there, and then you start building data, and
Mm.
then you see where this is going. So I would say it's a bit of both, and these days more transitioning into more and more software. So I would say in general in Norway, I'm pretty proud to say that we have pretty strong on software, like engineering skills. But
Mm.
from the pure software industry, we are less experienced in the building large SaaS companies. So we have some examples of that, but that is also what I personally would say is lacking here is sort of talents of been there, done that type of high scale, hyper growth type of SaaS companies. That's where we, as in our company, we need to go outside of that and more towards the
Well,
Bay Area or US and so forth.
maybe it's the precursor. You see, so you're going to be the first Norwegian unicorn. What about that?
We are not the first. There are a few unicorns already, so we're definitely tapping into some of those to kind of been there, done that. But if you look to Sweden, there are more of them. So this the Klarna and the Spotify
No,
guys is definitely
no,
leading
that's
the
what I'm saying.
crowd.
Ignore the Swedes. Ignore the Swedes. I mean,
Yeah,
they've got their own country to look after. What I'm saying is, you
yeah.
need to become in that kind of.
And of course we are in that journey.
Mm,
But we also need to kind of pull that talent into our company but as you mentioned, we are a global company. That's the beauty of also working in this digital age. We can attract talents from anywhere. And actually, you didn't mention that, but we were starting our company during COVID. So I think that is also a big change in how people started to sort of look at work now.
mm.
Coming out of that, everybody was sort of sitting home office. Everybody had access to Zoom or similar kind of tooling. So, it's a bit then back and forth, and there's a flip side to it as well, obviously. But it's definitely allow yourself to kind of start attracting talent from all over, and I think that is not going to go away.
I mean, when I was in my last corporate role, I was in Tesco, the retailer. One of the things that we did do, we actually did a bit of stuff with Telenor, because obviously
Hmm.
that's, I think, the kind of that's like the main
Yeah,
telco,
that's
isn't
a
it?
telco. That's the telco, big
And what
telco. Yeah.
and one of the things we actually nearly did, we actually nearly bought a platform, like a software platform from Telenor, because
Hmm.
they were very successful in the what's called MVNO space, mobile virtual
Hmm.
network operators. They've done a lot of international expansion. So yeah,
Hmm.
maybe you see, Egil, you got the opportunity. It's follow the Olympic road. It's like Wizard of
Yeah.
Oz. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
Wizard of
Exactly.
Oslo. It's not the Wizard of Oz. It's the Wizard of Oslo. Boom, boom. See, I'm a poet and I didn't know it.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, this is amazing. You should definitely do more marketing there.
Right. Anyway, so one of the things that, as I mentioned, 5 years ago in November, 2020, which is quite incredible, I ran that session, and that session was about how to test software in production.
Yeah.
And it was about what's concept called feature flags.
Yeah.
So for the
Correct.
audience who are not obviously developers, could you
Yeah.
explain from a business point of view why people would want to do that?
Yeah. So let's try to keep this as simple as possible. So basically, when you think about software is sort of you develop something that's quite abstract, and you need to test it. You want to test it, and we all see the impact. If let's say you go to a retail bank, it doesn't really work, right? That's a challenge that is not acceptable. So when you are testing software, this is what it's all about, sort of finding those unintended behaviors that you didn't foresee. So typically what happens is that there is a ton of testing prior to go to production.
Hmm.
And the core of the issues is basically what type of data is available or how that data is used, utilized, manipulated in a part of the application. And that's really, really, really difficult to mimic into a non-production environment. And why is that? Because there is a data set, there's a fixed data set, and because of GDPR, you cannot even take the production data set and copy it into a pre-production. Or if you want to do that, you need to have consent of your users. And typically that is sort of the data awareness is sort of growing, so people are sort of more restricted of where can my data be applied. So itself, that is a difficult problem. It's a legal challenge as well because of the GDPR.
Mm. Mm.
And also, when you are using your retail bank, everything is sort of part of this workflow, and that workflow creates signals or data points and all of that, and that impacts the behavior of that software. So you can test quite a bit pre-production, but it's first when you get into production, meaning the live system where you as a end user is sort of doing a thing, you want to go log in, see your balance and your accountants and etc. on your retail bank. That's when the real thing hits, right? So basically what a tested production environment or kind of concept means is that you are putting a change of code into production, but you do it in a manner where you can control the impact if there is anything going wrong for yourself.
Hmm.
So a typical scenario would be, okay, let me develop. I'm the software developer. I'm creating this new feature that you, Andrew, is having access in your retail bank. Let me now enable that for myself and my team in the production environment, but not for you, Annie, because you're my valued customer. So let's make sure that you are not impacted because you're going to be upset, and I don't want an upset valued customer. So I can go in, I can sort of do my initial testing. it looks good. I can do this is how I don't find any issues. So then I can take the next step, the next milestone, so to speak, in making that new feature available for yourself. And I can say, well, let me test it on 1% of my non-value. I wouldn't say non-value because every customer is important, but let's say less pay, like lower paying type of customers. So let's sort of, if there is an issue, there's only 1%, maybe even less, very few numbers of those. Maybe even we test it only for an hour and we see, does it work, does it not? So it's sort of a canary type of thing. Does it work, does it not? And basically that allows you to start scaling up this sort of adaptation of the end users.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is an issue, I can in milliseconds turn that down, saying, okay, for some reason, the segment that or cohort that Andrew is part of, there is an issue there. Let's disable that for now for Andrew. Let's go and find that challenge, improve on that, and go back and continue making this available. So basically, what you're doing, you're putting yourself up for getting software into production quicker. You want that because you want the quicker feedback from the end users, from the behaviors, from all of that sort of innovative type of way to develop software. But you don't want the impact of the high valued customer or big number of customers. Think of maybe the last big incident. Google had an incident a few weeks back. They put some new software out there in production, immediately had some issues with that. So it started to take down. Exactly. It took down quite a bit of online services and really impacted millions of users across the globe. And because it wasn't really behind this protected feature flag.
You should be using a leash. It's like,
I know.
Sergey Brin, come on. Get on the call with him. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been cold calling this guy for so long and saying there is a solution to our challenge, man. So
yeah, it's like a toggle on, toggle off, basically. Toggle on, toggle
so
off.
basically, think of it. It's a very simple kind of way to create some very powerful ways to accelerate your software development. And if you start thinking about it, AI is basically accelerating this problem. So what does AI do for you? AI is basically how we see there. I think there is two kind of trends.
It's generating the code quicker, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. It generates quicker. It generates more. And again, more is more complicated. And then what we are also seeing in the industry is that the number of issues is still there and maybe even increasing. There's quite a bit of study pointing to increase of issues in production as well. So I would say this problem is just getting bigger with AI, and I think everybody want to be on part of the AI train today.
Okay. Yeah, so it sounds like there's a viable business there. It's worth continuing, Egil.
It's definitely definitely worth to continue. That's an understatement this year.
But I was looking at your customers as well. You've actually got it's obviously a problem. Well, I mean, it's obviously the point we made a bit earlier is that every company is developing itself into a software capability to be more responsive to market and to their customers. And I suppose what I noticed was that you have customers across all kind of sectors as well, don't you? It's not just a one sector that's having that pain. It's all sectors want to deliver more value to their customers quicker.
Yeah, and that's a really good observation. I would say that is also what was made this opportunity so interesting. It's a true global problem, right? This is true if you are a native digital first type of startup out of the Silicon Valley, or if you are like Lloyds Bank, have a software that is probably, I don't know, as old as there has been software around or close to that. And one of our customers is having 85 years of data that they kind of keep under their management. So
wow.
It's a long history of, and I have a ton of respect for these companies because it's a lot of, let's say, technical debt. There's a lot of legacy in place, right? Which they have inherited for many, 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 many years. And they're still up for this sort of challenge that there is the newcomer to the markets coming in, doing nothing. There is no legacy in place. Everything is sort of fresh. We can just go and greenfield, kind of push, go. And you feel that kind of competition coming into your market at the same time. You also want to operate at similar speed, and then you need to start to kind of look at this from different.
Yeah, we all feel sorry for banks.
Banks is an, but it's a quite interesting challenge to solve, right? Isn't it? Because it's so important for our society that the bank is operating efficiently, and there is they are never wrong. You need to trust them 100%. I mean, there is nobody that want to mess around with your money, right? So you need to
Yeah, I
trust the
mean, it's a
banks
bit
and all
like
of that.
it's a bit like stuff. I've worked in banks, I've worked in telcos. It's like you've got these
Mm.
mission critical,
Yeah,
services that you have to maintain 24/7. And
yeah.
if a telecoms network goes down, which you did twice in my tenure, it's like, oh, nobody can make any calls or texts. It's like, oh,
Oh my,
it's like
yeah, and
squeaky bum moment. Anyway,
yeah,
um,
and just imagine also with the geopolitical happening. I mean, this is even more real, right? It's you need to protect yourself. So one thing is that you cannot make
mm,
mistakes, but you also need to make sure that you protect yourself. So having this up and running at any time is absolutely crucial for us as a society, right?
mm, yeah. Well, you just got to make sure you keep all that cash under your bed in that shoebox. Yeah.
Don't tell anyone.
Um, so the other thing I suppose I was going to ask you about, because I know what I found quite interesting with what you were doing was obviously you've also been doing there's this phenomenon called open source, right?
Mm,
So when I left my corporate role and I went in software in Silicon Valley for the first time a few years ago, we were kind of building a commercial product inside an open source ecosystem,
mm,
um, and all the nuances of obviously if you've got people who are operating in an open source ecosystem, they expect everything to be free, yeah.
mm,
Um, and then obviously you have to reset their expectations about there's a
mm,
commercial license, there's an open source
mm,
license. So
mm.
it sounds like some of the stuff that your CTO and yourself, you actually incubated an open source
Yeah,
project around this topic
yeah,
originally back in the mid 2010s, I think. Could you just explain a
yeah,
little bit about that? Because obviously that's quite an interesting
yeah,
story about how you then evolved that. Like
yeah.
all the developers were probably going, "This is fantastic because it's
Hmm.
actually giving me value." But
Hmm.
then, how do you deal with a transition then to a commercial company that's
Mm.
actually gets revenue? So how did you deal with that?
Yeah. How do you deal with that? So
Or
that's
are
a
you still
simple
dealing? Are
answer.
you still dealing with it?
Yeah, I would say that's a simple answer. It's definitely not. No, it's definitely probably one of the biggest challenges that there is in this type of business. So let's tell the story. Kind of go back to the origin. So this project Unleash was developed back in 2019. 14 released in early 15. So exactly as you say, mid 2010s. It was developed because of a need. It's a typical engineering story, right? It's I have this problem. I'm looking for some tooling to help me solve this problem. There is none that I really enjoy, like for some reason, or so I'm a builder, so I build it myself. So basically, that's the start of everything. So it was built and released in 2015. It was not core business for where my co-founder did work. He was working for Classifieds. It's a local company similar to eBay,
Mhm.
and he wanted basically to sort of release software quicker, as we explained. He needed to get it in production, and there wasn't really anything suitable for himself back in the days. Or their team. So he built it as an open source, and it was sort of also something he spent quite a bit of time, weekends, late nights, because it was not core business. It was sort of more engineering tool, not kind of core business. So he kept it as a side project. They started to adopt, and this is the beauty of selling to developers, because developers, they don't want to talk to sales, they don't want to talk to people like us, Center, but they want to talk to their peers, right? So what happens is,
Depends if you've got beer and pizza in your hand. If you've got beer and pizza here,
well,
then a developer will go. They'll go,
trick in
Egil,
the book.
Egil Andrew.
That's
Then that I want to talk to you now. I'm going to go. Well, you can have some
I want
pizza and
your
some beer.
pizza and beer, and they're going to tell some jokes about us. How don't we don't understand anything about engineering for sure. No, it's quite true. So basically, what happened is, of course, that they started to adopt sort of organically. So developers talking to their peers or friends, and it started to be adopted into other companies. So over a couple of years, so this is coming to 2019 when we kicked off this business commercial journey. It grew organically. So basically, there was already establishing a type of market
So
pull.
he donated it. Did he donate it to the Apache Software Foundation, or how did he open source it?
He open sourced it. It published as an open source. I would assume GitHub is. We are still
Oh,
on
on GitHub,
GitHub,
right?
and
Okay. Okay.
yeah, and it was under I believe an Apache 2 type
Right.
license.
Okay.
So it was already out there and it was already kind of providing value. So the beauty with that is that it was being developed, and it was being developed according to the needs of developers. It was sort of maintained at a kind of an acceptable rate, because you had also contributors coming in doing their thing. I don't have this feature. Well, I can develop this feature and give it back to you guys as a contribution. So it was sort of a very effective way of getting the let's say the foundation up and running. So when we started this company, we were not kind of coming for build the biggest open source project in the world. We have done that, but we said we are here to make money. So let's start thinking about how we can sort of monetize this, how we can sort of build a commercial model on top of this.
And how many downloads did you have? I mean, how much use did you have in the open source? Have you got in the open source world?
I believe we are getting closer to a $30 million to date.
30 million.
Yeah, 30.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a pretty big there, and I think we are more than 12,000 stars on GitHub. So that's sort of a like, if that
exactly.
for those that is not on GitHub, which is sort of, it gives you some, but it's still in a vanity metric. So it's definitely being used out there, and I think that is the starting point. So coming back to the commercial journey here, this is the difficult part, right? Because you're giving something away, and then you start kind of thinking about, okay, I want to get somebody to pay for this now. So what we decided is we sort of said this is going to be the biggest challenge we have. How do we kind of separate the free from the commercial? How do you kind of bundle it? How do you message that? How do you kind of convey that into revenue? So it's going to be hard. So everything that is difficult, we need to start doing now, so we can train and we can learn and we can sort of adapt and pivot and whatever. So the first idea was sort of hosted for you as an hosted service, which is sort of taking away the value prop, but basically say, well, you don't need to spend your time operating this internally. You need to go and you can buy this kind of for
so you launched it as kind of like a SaaS offering.
Yeah, we launched it as a SaaS only, and what we found is, well, developers didn't really have any challenge with hosting this themselves, so that was really not a value prop that was worth anything. So that is not a good idea. So
try harder.
Exactly. So what we did see was that there was capabilities that was sort of more kind of larger scale need. So quite quickly we pivoted into sort of saying this, what is referred to as an open core business model, basically gated features. Right. So we also looked at sort of saying, okay, the open source, who are that for? That is for individual developers, meaning hobby projects, less complex needs. Don't need all of that compliance, all of that security, all of that sort of large scale work together.
Like enterprise features, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So then we started to sort of developing all of those enterprise features, and that's what we still do. We are sort of saying open source is best for you as an individual developer. As soon as you start growing outside of a single development team, these are kind of features that you want to look for and ask for. And probably also your security department is going to demand you to have in place. So
you see,
that's basically exactly. So that's basically what we evolved into.
I suppose the thing is, security is quite a big topic, isn't it? Because if you think about, there's been some, obviously in the last couple of years, there's been some horror stories about, let's just upload our code base into ChatGPT. Yeah. So obviously, that evolution of every company is a software company, then effectively that becomes an asset, and it becomes a very valuable asset, your IP, your code.
And that's also what we see, and that's also where we are sort of coming to this with an edge. We are very flexible on how we deploy our software. So coming from the origin of open source, the beauty with that is among other things that we already mentioned, is you never know who is going to use it and how it's going to be used. So it by nature is really adaptable and flexible. And we found that very attractive for a particular larger, more complex, call them where there's a lot of legacy in place. So instead of me coming in saying and dictating, this is how you need to work, this is how you need to change, this is how you need to pivot, I'm basically saying, okay, this is how you change or operate my software according to who you are, what you do, and how you do that. And on top of that, also we have designed everything GDPR first, GDPR in mind, because we are coming from Europe, so we already have that edge back in 2019 when we
Well, you
launched.
see, I'm not in Europe anymore, so I don't care. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, I know, but actually, people are starting to care more and more,
No,
and
I
and
know,
uh,
no, no.
with the AI, so it's getting more and more attention, and do everybody care? Absolutely not. But it's definitely bigger and bigger awareness about data residency. So I would
Yes,
counter
data
that, to
sovereignty.
be
Yeah,
frank.
it's data sovereignty.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm just thinking when you were talking, actually, because you're putting toggles and feature flags inside somebody else's software.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
suppose it warrants the question is, do you have toggles and feature flags in your own software? 'Cause it's like
Yeah.
the feature flag of the feature flag of the feature flag, isn't it?
Well, we have designed that in a manner that should not,
You know, like eating your own,
cannot be a problem. Yeah.
drinking your own champagne, eating your own dog
Yeah,
food.
no, we are definitely using our own champagne before we sell it. So yes, we do. But then again, we're very thoughtful on how we sort of implement them to make sure we don't have that sort of dependency on a dependency on another dependency, and everybody is getting
Exactly.
confused.
Like, otherwise, that makes the testing even more complex. Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
of course, and
No,
sorry.
sorry, Ron.
No, I was going to say it's yes, you are 100% true, and that's also what we saw. You mentioned that there was one of our early competitors that was you were talking to back in 2020, if I remember it correctly, and I think also that is what we saw in the market. There wasn't really this awareness of actually what we are introducing is complexity. It's a great benefit for its own purpose, right? You have a lot of benefits of going faster and getting feedback quicker. But you're
Hmm.
also introducing a complexity that over time, if you don't remove that, it's going to be a big challenge for you. Because if you have this opportunity to change the behavior of the software 2 years down the road, I can tell you there's going to be some horror stories, and there are some horror stories coming from that. So we also are very mindful of supporting customers, saying you need to clean up the mess that we can leave with you if you don't pay attention to this. And
Well,
and
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I originally started as a developer many years ago. I know you
yeah,
did as well. So,
yeah.
you know, there is a tendency sometimes for some individuals to over engineer, yeah, and
Oh, 100%.
overcomplicate the code, right? So
100%.
that becomes a rat's nest, yeah, and it becomes unsupportable, and it becomes technical debt, yeah.
Oh,
So you know
100%. And
that doesn't go away with what you've got, but what you're saying is that you have a way of, I suppose, compartmentalizing
yeah,
and
exactly.
toggling on, toggling off, and you know that thing about the velocity to production, because
Mm,
testing, in my view, has been the last. It's been the last bastion of
mm.
you know, working in a working in a few regulated industries. We used to have this thing called water scrumfall, right?
Oh,
Which was
I can
basically,
see where this is going.
so waterfall and Scrum and Agile, yeah. So you know you take so long to get the money out of the business. You know we need it, we need it last week. So you
Yeah,
spend 2 months getting the money when you're supposed to be in a week. They finally release
yeah.
the money, and then you have to run like hell to get the deliverable done. And then
Mm,
because it's such a regulated environment, you go, okay, this is going to take at least 3 months to put it into production. And you go, what?
mhm.
Yeah. So you got waterfall, Scrum, which is really fast. They're developing it, and then unit testing it, and then you suddenly spend 3 months testing it before you put it into
Yeah,
production.
yeah.
Not an ideal
It's
scenario.
not an ideal scenario, and you would be surprised to see how many of examples that are still around in this industry.
Surely not. I
Similar.
cannot believe that. I cannot
Oh,
believe that.
really?
Mm.
Well, anyways.
Yeah, but what I think what you were saying though was you were saying, 'cause I mean we talked about this briefly a bit earlier, was about the phenomenon of the impact of AI. Because
Mm,
now, you know, I was talking to my friends in Switzerland the other day, and they were talking about Claude and you know what you can do with, you know, like generating code, yeah,
mm,
you
mm,
know, generating applications, you know, with this thing with Lovable and all these other new
yeah,
tools. That's collapsing actually the code generation stage, which normally is a, you know,
mhm,
it's a creative, it's an artistic element of, you know, developers a very creative activity.
mhm.
So that kind of commoditizes quite a bit of that, and then you know collapse the time for that. Then you've got this piece around what do you let the machine do, and what do you test then? And then you've actually got the pressure from the business to get more velocity
Yeah.
into production. So it's
Yeah.
gonna it doesn't make it easy, does it? It doesn't make it.
No, and,
It's
and I think you point exactly to what is happening, and I think also you point exactly to why I'm very bullish on this future, because this problem is just getting bigger, right? And there is exactly the how you describe it is what we see happening with the front runners within the space. I mean, the lovable guys is sort of a kind of a different direction, I would say. We can definitely go down that road, but what we see is there is a lot of support for, I think it's often referred to as AI-driven engineering or AI-supported engineering.
yeah.
And a lot of the studies I've seen that it's interesting to sort of follow is stating that really smart engineers is getting more efficient using this
Mhm.
tooling, because I think my takeaway is sort of they understand the big system thinking and sort of how to build software, and we also see
Mhm.
that the more junior developers is probably not as efficient, and the problem is that
Mhm.
they are more efficient writing code, but they also are seeing more rework, meaning they need to kind of fix it, change it because it didn't really fit into the bigger picture. And the other alternative, or studies we are seeing, is that AI is very, very effective on greenfield, but less so today on the so-called brownfield, meaning existing source code. So I think there is
Mhm.
still some way to go, and I think we can all see that the speed of change here is definitely going to catch up also in the
I mean,
brownfields.
the problem on brownfield, I think, and I was in not in the country I'm in now, but I was in another country earlier this year, and we were talking about this. Is that the issue you've got is that a lot of, especially in large enterprises, they haven't kept up to date on the documentation. They haven't addressed the technical debt. The code base is different. They don't have a specification of actually what the application that's in production.
Mm.
So actually, how do
Yeah,
you, what do you call it? You kind of like retrospectively,
yeah,
extract the specification of the actual application,
mm.
and then you've got something to test against. Yeah,
Yeah,
because actually there's drift happening
mm.
in the application, and you don't have
Yeah.
your arms around it. So I think, and then if you sprinkle AI on top of that as well,
Mm.
and then you've got code generation. I mean, it's like it's like it's really quite tough.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things we are seeing is that AI works better for, let's say, the more popular languages out there. So as you may know, I'm not sure if everybody knows, but it's sort of there are different languages that is used to develop software. So Java is a
Mm,
big one, and .NET is another. But they are less effective and may even be negative impact on performance size on the less popular languages. And the reason for that is basically there is less training material available. I mean, how many source codes are available to train on? I don't know, Elixir, I think, is a less popular one that was mentioned. COBOL, I can just imagine. And then again, there's a lot of those
COBOL.
softwares.
You say COBOL?
There's still COBOL again, laying around, in you've done your fair share of that, I can
No,
imagine.
I once developed in a thing called Diebol. You remember have you heard of Diebol?
Oh no, I never tried that one. I've been doing my fair share of.
Dibol. Yeah, it was
Oh no, I
diabolic.
never done that.
It was diabolical as well. It was for me. That's why they call it Diebol.
Oh really?
Really.
Yeah, so there is so many strange things around, and the less training materials or training data that is available, obviously the AI doesn't really work as efficiently. So I think there is a lot of good stuff coming, but I also think that there are some awareness on where does it really play good and where should we maybe be a bit more careful, let's say. But
Mm.
it's definitely a big trend in the industry for everybody, as we all know.
Mm. So from your personal point of view, then, I mean, you've
Mm,
obviously transitioned because I know you said originally that you were kind of like a technical developer in a big corporate.
mm, mm.
How have you found the transition to be now the guy, yeah, the CEO, co-founder,
The guy,
the business guy, right?
the
You're now
business guy.
you're the CEO. You're CEO of a software company with tens and tens and tens of employees. How have you found that
Yeah.
journey? What's been easy and what's been tough? Any thoughts on that?
I think there's a lot of examples of what's been tough. I'm not sure if there is so much that has been super easy.
Oh, come on! I can't believe that.
Well, I think the one thing that keeps coming back to me, and that actually took some time for me to sort of realize, is the more and more responsibility you get, the more and more kind of self-aware you need to be in how you behave and how you sort of play your role, so to speak, right? So as a CEO or SD guy, everybody have an opinion on you. Everybody is looking to what you do, what you don't do, what you talk about, what you don't talk. You get the drill. So initially that was sort of felt very uncomfortable, right? So being an engineer, I'm not a typical sales or extrovert type of a guy. I was more kind of a bit of an introvert, I would say. I still engaged and get a lot of energy talking to people. So it's not all about that, but it's sort of, being the humble Norwegian coming from the Viking line, that was more of look at what I do, not who I am, and realizing that the role made a difference and had a difference and is a difference. That took me some time, and I would say that was also kind of a lot of self-reflection on, I'm actually in a role. I'm not necessarily this as a person per se, even though I bring my person into the role because it needs to be authentic, right? So
Yeah.
I think that was, I wouldn't say it was it took quite some time. And maybe it was quite a bit of uncomfortable going through some of those kind of learnings. And it's also, I would say, it's also moving from a more typical IC role into sort of a more senior leadership role. You are also responsible for whatever is happening. So everything that is good is everybody else's to applaud, and everything that is wrong is on you, which is sort of fair. And I think that also is just part of the game.
The joys of leadership is what it's called.
Exactly, isn't it? And everybody is looking for you for the answer. Everybody's coming with the problem, and that is also maybe at some point sort of a difficult thing. But I find it very intellectual, stimulating to be in this type of role. And the reason for saying so is that there is so many areas where you can sort of dive into. It's part of how do you get people to accelerate, how do you kind of read and understand the individuals. You need to be smart enough to understand what is happening. So coming into and always been in engineering or engineering heavy companies, I feel comfortable to talk to engineers. I understand their kind of the language that is spoken. I understand enough to pretend that I understand what they say. At the same time, there is this business side of things where you actually need to translate what is happening there into something that creates value and people are willing to put money on the table to get to. And you need to understand what is driving a sale. How do you identify a compelling event? How do you kind of get to kind of a why now or why us type of conversation? So all of that is a lot of engineering systems, but also a lot of art, and I think that kind of intersection there is really what I find very intellectual and stimulating. So I'm not sure if that was learning, like a positive or negative learning, but it was definitely a big learning journey for myself.
Yeah, but I suppose you'd be more, because of your background, presumably more comfortable talking to the technical type team and the engineering team, and then I suppose you've had to learn how to.
You need to operate, and how do you kind of, what is the slogans, how do you speak in a sales team? Because it's quite different from an engineering team, and what is the mindset, and getting into that was I love it. I just love putting myself outside of the comfort zone and sort of getting in there and getting my hands dirty and understanding how I try to understand my best, but then again also bringing in very smart people to do this for me and learn and teach me.
It's like reverse mentoring.
Well, it's that's the beauty of being a CEO, because basically you can hire the best people to kind of reverse mentor you into taking care of sales, taking care of marketing, and that's how I've been thinking. I'm always looking for my VP of whatever to be better, smarter, and more experienced than myself, and that makes that, I think that works quite well.
I know that you've taken some investment from external parties. And how's that experience been?
I would say good. I would say very positive on to be frank. It's definitely a long-term relationship, right? When you are signing up, it's not like or at least we have looked for investors that is approachable and available and part of the conversation. So we're not looking for taking your money and don't talk to me ever again type of money.
It
And
depends how much money you take. It depends how much money you take about how intense that is.
Well, of course, because it does come with that contract, right? It's I'm taking your money, and that is a huge responsibility, and that also allows you to have a very specific opinion and maybe possibility to impact and should have impact of how we drive our company. But at the same time, we have been fortunate enough to choose investors where we truly feel that there is an as much as possible aligned incentives, because that is also the challenge here, to make sure that the incentives aligns very well. And also we have decided in my board of directors to be very open about, we have a bit of a misaligned as incentives there. The VC funds are having a bigger N. We have one N in that conversation. So we will act differently because of that, or we will have slightly different incentives because of that. So, but I found that conversation to be I'm very impressed and proud of who we have on as investors in this journey.
And did you take, quick question? I mean, it's just, you don't have to share everything, but did you take funding from day one when you tried to commercialize it, or did you build organically and then took things? Did you find product market fit commercially and then decide to scale up by getting additional capital, or what was the timing of that?
So initially we sort of started this as a side gig, right? It was sort of an opportunity that started to come along, and we decided, I think we spent about a year to explore this opportunity, and it was sort of a perfect storm. We were doing our day jobs over there and then coming back to this startup over here.
Right.
And we did that for about a year. So we did onboard quite a bit of customers, and the reason for why we decided to raise money was we were getting too many customers that we didn't want to pretend anymore. It was sort of a pretend game, like, you can call me at any time, and I knew that, well, I'm probably going to be back to back in meetings for the next couple of 8 hours, so don't call me then because that's going to be a challenge.
Right.
So we decided at that point to sort of saying, okay, this is where we need to kind of just go all on board. We need to bring a bigger team. So we did have some revenue, and so I think we had 30 customers.
At that point, it was just you and Ivar, or was it a smaller team?
That was me and Ivar doing that for a year, and then taking some funding to kind of increase the team. So that when we brought the core team together.
That reminds me of the Atlassian story. I don't know if you've ever watched, with Mike and Scott, from Atlassian, where when they started, they kind of obviously found a problem, a bit like Ivar did, they create a product, Jira. But then the funny thing was that they there's a particular recording I saw with, I think it was Scott, explaining that they'd have an inbound call from a customer, and they said, "Oh, just hold, I'll just pass you on to the finance team," and then they'd like put a different voice on to say, "Yes, oh yes, how can I help you?" And then they'd have a customer support question, and Mike would take the call, and then they'd say, "Oh, just hold, I'll just put you through," and he'd like go to the side and take the phone call from the other side of the room. The same room. There's only two of them in the office.
It was pretty much the same thing. So it was sort of an interesting sending whatever kind of team guy on support or sales leader or whatever is the title in the email when we started, whoever you kind of approach. So yeah, 100% we were doing everything. It was a lot of fun, but then again, you start maturing and you need to start having those specialized people coming in and do the real thing and do it the real way.
Interesting. So I suppose in your one of the few final kind of questions I got for you today was about in your kind of journey. We always talk about peaks, and we also talk about valleys, right? So obviously we talked a lot of the peaks you've had. 30 million downloads, building a big team, going global, having lots of lovely VCs supporting you.
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
were the valleys? Any valleys you could share that you feel like you could share today on this episode? Any dark
There
moments
is,
that you kind
yeah.
of feel that you could
You
share?
Yeah, I would say if you look at a startup story, it's like a roller coaster. You have high peaks and you definitely have a valley coming just after that one. So I would say we have seen periods of time where the sales isn't growing as quickly as you would like, and you're kind of trying to figure out what is going on. And you're sort of starting to, and I would say even though it's sort of you're when you're not progressing as fast as you expect or as fast as your investor expects, that puts a ton of pressure. So coming back to your question about the investors and taking all of that money, and you start sort of doubting yourself, you start to doubting the idea, you start to doubt the team, you start to doubt the process, you start to doubt everything, and it's sort of you need to do something different, because if you keep doing what you do and expect a different result, I would say you're pretty stupid. So then it's sort of question is, what do you change? And is it random to what to change? Because if you just change anything, it's a different picture. So maybe that works, but that doesn't really feel like very kind of strategic way of operating. So we have had periods where, and I can definitely speak for myself, that has been, nights where you don't really fall asleep because you cannot really understand what is the change that is needed to happen. So it's not like this is the event that triggered that, but when you start moving into that, I think we were doing a 4x 1 year, and then we were sort of slowing down. It didn't really go as quickly. There was a lot of other wrong hires that we brought into the company that also created quite a bit of mess in certain areas, and suddenly everything just felt like falling apart to some extent. And then it's sort of, okay, how do you have the grit to keep going and sort of push through those moments of time? So also seeing large contracts. I mean, the beauty with a large contract is that it brings you a lot of money. So when you have a 10x type of a contract, that's beautiful when you sign it, and then you start thinking, okay, this is a ton of risk. So also
This is when the fun begins.
yeah, I know, but then again, I also saw that particular customer going back and contract by 50%. So it was sort of slicing that contract value for multiple reasons. So that was a big challenge, of course. But then again, you need to just stay focused. You just need to kind of keep going, and I believe smart people that is consistently doing a lot of effort keep having success. But it's definitely not only a sunshine story, for sure.
It's definitely what, sorry? It's not what, sorry? Sorry?
Not only a sunshine story. There is a fair share of rainy days along the way as
No,
well.
no, 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 no. I celebrate you sharing because in interviewing circa nearly 200 people over the show, not every when I ask that question, not everybody shares. Not everybody is brave enough to share in this environment, and everything's
I feel this is a very safe environment, so I definitely
well,
want people
that's
to
good then.
share.
Everything's like sunshine and rainbows and unicorns,
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
But no, yeah. I mean, I can tell obviously the way you describe it. That yeah, I think that's the reality of managing stakeholders who have
Mm.
extremely high expectations, and but then sometimes they don't really understand what's going on, or they've never actually been in the dugout
Yeah,
themselves, so they don't
yeah,
really
yeah.
appreciate what it takes to get stuff done. But
Mm.
call me old-fashioned anyway.
Yeah.
So, so no, amazing journey so far. And I suppose the question for me would be, what do you see now? We're in 2025. I mean,
Mm.
obviously the whole world's going to end in 2030. So, what are you going to do by 2029? That's I suppose
Yeah.
what does the future look like for Unleash?
Yeah, so what is the future like? I'm super excited about AI. I think this AI thing is, I think there is some hype to it for sure. I think that is sort of an understatement, but it's definitely going to create the next generation of huge companies based on and utilizing AI. So I think that is changing how software is being built, and I think that the core challenge that we are sort of there to help is definitely there to stay. So I'm very bullish of that. And And also, I truly believe that software keep having a significant part of how we will operate the world moving forward. So in 5 years, that is still true. That is still true 10, 15 years from now, and even 20 if we are there to think that far into the future. So we are here to keep building, and we didn't talk about the mission of the company, but we are here to make life easy for developers. I think there will be developers around even 10 years from now. So that is basically what we will kind of keep focusing on, and identifying what are the core challenges that we can solve for these guys, and keep building a business on top of that.
You can't make it too easy for developers. Come on.
Why? Isn't that basically
Well, no, because
challenging enough to build software?
I was gonna write a book actually a while ago, but I didn't end up writing it. It was going to be called "Developers Are from Venus and Testers Are from Mars." Yeah, because you could never get into. It's his fault. It's like his fault.
Yeah.
You know, so the
Yeah,
developers,
so I think
the
developers as
well, the developers are
so I
always
think
seen
of
as top.
developers as software engineering. It's sort of different types of engineering. So even QAs or testers is, in my point of view, a developer. They're developing and from a different point of view. So I would actually counter that book title. I think that is a bit outdated. Everybody is a developer, and everybody in the engineering team is.
It was meant to be provocative. It was meant to be provocative.
Yeah.
No, because obviously I've been in the software industry for quite a while, and what I noticed was that sometimes the developers were the rock stars, yeah, and then sometimes the people who were doing the QA and testing, and maybe that's because I spent equal amount of time with those people, they always maybe got overlooked, yeah. So, but actually the combination of those two skills actually delivers the quality, yeah. So, the developer needs the tester, and the tester needs the developer, otherwise symbiotic kind of thing. But that was my little skit, you see, my little comedy, my little comedy from my little perspective. Maybe I should still write the book. Actually, maybe it'll be a bestseller.
Yeah, maybe, you never know.
So if anybody wants to know more about what you're doing at Unleash, obviously, if there's any kind of CIOs, CTOs, heads of engineering, chief product officers, what's the best way of understanding more and finding out more about what you guys are doing? Where would they go?
Yeah, they need to go to getunleash.io. So that's getunleash.io. That's where you find all of the documentation. You will find more blog posts, documentation, all of the kind of the solution areas, and everything you would expect to see from a type of company like ourselves.
Okay, cool. And I think you've got this. I noticed you've got this thing called UnleashCon. Is that right? That you've done recently?
Yeah.
Is that right?
We just recently had UnleashCon, so we had a handful of our customers talking about how they are using Unleash in different aspects. So we had one Prudential were talking about how they use Unleash sort of to go back to and support their compliance. So for them, releasing software is a ton of compliance requirements.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that they need to do. So we have worked quite a bit of invested time with them to kind of support their journey into kind of getting this automated. So again, taking the friction out for developers to make it easy for the developers to keep doing what they want to do and make sure they are compliant. And also we had another few companies, like I think it was us, talking about how they were using Unleash to test different kind of LLMs that they are pushing in front of their customers. So that was also a very interesting story, and I know this as well. So a lot of good stories there on very practical.
Did you do that as a physical get together somewhere, or was it online?
No, we did it as a virtual conference.
Okay, right.
Makes it a bit easier for everybody to kind of to attend and get it done. So and we are doing more of those coming up as well.
And that was that the first one you did, or you done them before?
We did also one last year, so it was the second one we did.
Oh, cool. That's cool. Yeah, it's that thing about how do you keep the connection with the customers, isn't it? And how do you keep getting that feedback loop? I suppose as you said about
exactly.
And
it's all about kind of staying close to the customers and end users. That's really where you are. So that is really top of mind. And I think encouraging every CTO, CIOs, and those people to kind of really make sure that is sort of facilitated and part of how the software is being built, because there is no better honest feedback than listening to your end users.
Then you just ignore them and then build what you want anyway. No, I'm joking.
Of course you do.
In that creative,
Because you know what, you always know best, right?
that creative cauldron that you're in, yeah. Because you
Yeah.
know, oh yeah, I know exactly what they want. Really, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well,
That's a good one.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you for coming on, Egil Østhus.
And thank you for having me. And again, you are a rock star in Norwegian.
Well, not yet, but I've been to Oslo a few times. I've hung out with quite a few Norwegians. Been to the fjords.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. It's a really good, really interesting topic, and I think all power to you what you've done so far, and I'm sure that it'll be you'll go from bigger and bigger and better things. As you said, that the whole software industry is not going anywhere south soon. I don't sense. And obviously, you need to have some great companies to help people deliver software faster of higher quality. So, sounds like that's exactly what you're focused on, which is fantastic.
Yep, it is.
So,
thanks for having me, Andrew.
No problem. That was Egil Østhus, CEO of Unleash, GetUnleash.io or Unleash from Norway. Our first Norwegian customer, or not customer, guest, you could say on the show. And that was Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. Catch you later. Ciao.